No pressure. That's never any pressure. It's never any pressure when you stand up here in front of God's people and speak. I take that very seriously, and so thank you very much, Pastor. I appreciate you allowing this to happen today. So I have my presentation right here on my phone, so I'm going to be accompanying what's happening right back behind me, so I don't always have to keep turning around. So I'll nod, so that way you know when to change the slide and everything like that. So awesome. My name is Bryan Avey, and I am the president and project developer for Upraise Incorporated. Upraise is a registered California nonprofit organization. We are a Christian organization, and our focus is on discipleship and personal development. Now, I want to, first of all, introduce to you who I am, because who I am really ties in to what Upraise is and the work that's being done. But I also want you to keep in mind, as I'm speaking here this morning, in the back of your brain, I want you to think about this question: can a small church have a global impact? Okay? So as we're going through this, I want you to keep that in mind. And so I would like to first off introduce you to my family. And I'm married. My wife is, her name is Jeannie, and I have 3 kids. Isaac is 9 years old. Olivia is 4, and Lena, she's going to be 1 year old tomorrow. Now, I would have my family here with me, but they're unable to be here because they're in Texas right now. We're in a phase of transition, and this transition is kind of is taking part in several phases right now. So they're over there in Texas. Our objective is we're going to find a plot of land to live on in rural East Texas area, and from there we're going to live, and we'll be based out of there. And as president of Upraise, I'll be doing the mission work based from there, but also traveling as needed and doing all that kind of stuff like that. So that's kind of where we're at in a transition phase. So the story really all begins with a 3-year-old boy who went to Brazil with his parents, and they were missionaries. And when we went to Brazil, I lived at first in the Amazon basin, which is at the top, of course. And then after several years, we moved down to the southern, central eastern area. You see the star, that's the capital. Just a little bit under that, you see a mark for another city. We lived in that area for a while. That's where you heard of Brazilian coffee. That's where the coffee plantations are, in that area right there. And that's I learned how to ride a bike going through the coffee fields, in between the rows of coffee bushes. Anyway, little fun fact there. And so then from the ages of 8 to about 16, I lived in the city of Salvador, which is right underneath that hump that sticks out in the Atlantic Ocean. That was the first port in South America where there was a large influx of the African slave trade, and where they brought over the slaves at hundreds of thousands. So in that area, Brazil was very rich in African culture. You saw it in the music, and even in the words, in the art, in the food. Very similar to West Africa. Also, the religion, a lot of that was imported as well, and kept up throughout the ages. You see a lot of the similar things in Haiti. You see a lot of similar of that kind of African religion in Cuba and things like that. So very, very strong, very prominent in that area. Anyway, so these next few slides, okay, that I'm going to show you, I want you to really strain very hard because I have a few pictures of my childhood, and I want you to try your best to depict and see if you can find me in any of these pictures. Okay, here I am in front of our house in Brazil with a few kids from the neighborhood. You know, I'm in there somewhere, you know. And this is a group from church. You know, my mom is also in that picture right there. So, and then you can see me as a little child in our backyard eating an orange. And here, of course, the game that we all play in Brazil, soccer. All right, so there I'm trying to chase the ball. So this is how I grew up. And just to move forward a little bit, I finished high school in the United States and ended up going to college. Now, I didn't know what to do. I wanted to do music, but, I was prohibited from that. My dad, being a former hippie, said, musicians, all they do is shoot up heroin and they play in smoky bars, right? So, that I had to change, my direction on that. So I ended up just choosing something, Spanish, to be a Spanish teacher. I had been on a mission trip one time when I was 14, and we went to Mexico one time when I was into the United States. And so within that week, I picked up Spanish and all that kind of stuff, and I have a knack for languages. And so I said, well, Spanish is kind of easy. Why don't I just do that? And that's what I began doing in college. Well, that didn't work out. So, moving forward, I quit college and went to Brazil for a year to kind of figure out what direction I'm going to take. Finally, I just decided, I'm going to go to California, and I got a buddy over there, and I'll just try to do music and just live life out in California. And so in 1998, I came out here to California, stayed with my buddy, and through my buddy, I met Nate. So we've been friends since 1998. Anyway, moving forward a bit, I began my life out here in California, messing around with the music and working, and before you know it, I got married in 2002. But the important part of this whole story is it got to the point to where life was getting very difficult. The music thing wasn't paying off, and it was always like I was hitting, face first into a wall. Where is this going? And so moving forward a bit, I'm going to cut out a lot of these details and everything. But I found myself one day. I had quit doing music very much. I tried to go back to school to study music, but it just wasn't working out. I was in debt because of some circumstances in 2008 when I couldn't find another job. That was messed up, back then and during that time. And so I found myself in debt with a kid, with my wife. I felt like I had no marketable skills. Where's my life going? It was very stressful. So I completely, I said to God in my heart, I'm done with, I think I've been kind of trying to force my will upon you, God, all these years. So I completely relinquished this whole idea of music. Set my guitar down. I said, if music is important in my life, it's going to find me because I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm here. But God, I'm done with it. Right about that time, my boss came up to me. I was working at, where I still work today, at the Foursquare denomination, the headquarters. I'm the assistant to the general counsel, the lawyer who represents the Foursquare. At the time, he came up to me and said, Brian, I'm doing some work with the district over here, and we're doing some mission stuff, and I'm trying to help them organize teams to go to Haiti. This was around 2010, after that earthquake happened. And he says, and I think you would be good to lead teams. And I kind of thought to myself, well, all right, that sounds like it's from left field, but, why not? I'll give it a try, I'm kind of good with languages. Maybe I can test my skills to see if they're still kind of sharp. And, I learned French also while I was in high school. And I thought, let me give it a try. And so I did. And, that's when Haiti, happened for me. And that just kind of turned things. You hear the expression, "Oh, my life was turned upside down." Well, imagine a fish that's out of water, flip-flopping back and forth. That's the best way I can describe what happened to me after I started going to Haiti. And I'll tell you why. The team that we were supposed to that I went with that first time, where it was a team of leaders, pastors, and everything, and to kind of scout out the area and see what we can do and all this and that. And as we're there, I'm not a pastor, never was. Not a construction guy. I don't know anything about, plumbing or electric or, doing all these kind of things like that. So as we were there in Haiti, so the people that were there showing us around were saying, so we're building a project here, we're building something over there, and we're doing this, and, and everybody's, yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm absolutely useless. These people don't need me. Why am I even here? I don't do this stuff. I'm just the guy that plays guitar, what am I doing here? So it started frustrating me. And then, but what started happening during that week is I realized I'm talking to our translators, the Haitian guys that were with our team, and I started asking them questions and trying to test my French, and then I started asking them questions, and I started picking up phrases. And as we went to orphanages, I could already, say stuff like to the kids, "What's your name? How old are you?" And, this kind of thing. How do you say this? When you learn how do you say this in any language, you're making friends automatically, because they're all over you. And children are the best, right? Because they want to tell you, and it's fun, and anyway. So I started, picking up on all that kind of stuff. And so I realized, all right, I'm not a construction worker, I'm not a pastor, but I saw myself making connections with these people, and learning, and I was loving it. Not only that, they told me, "Hey, Bryan, there's this Brazilian missionary that's here. I want you to meet him." Yeah, okay. So I went and I met him, and we got along, and it was really cool, meeting a Brazilian in a different country. And he said, "Bryan, we have chapel at the UN base right across the street." Now, at the time, Brazil's armed forces were doing a project with the UN over in Haiti, the peacekeeping project, and so the Christian soldiers had a chapel, and so via that contact, I was able to take the team to the chapel at the UN base over there in Haiti, and I had the opportunity to translate from English to Portuguese, and one of our pastors during one of the chapels was they allowed him they invited him to preach, So I started seeing these things happening, and I came back to the States, and I said, I just can't. It just can't be like a one-time thing, This is crazy. I got to go back. There's something there. So I started going back a little more often on these missions trips. And it got to the point to where I would come back to the States and go back to the office. I'm doing filing, printing papers, answering phones, but then there's that stuff in Haiti that was happening, and all these ideas going on in my brain, and these people that I met and friends that I was making, and what does that have to do with my life here? It was. I couldn't reconcile the two things. I'm in the office, but then there's this work in Haiti that I realized, there's something happening here. And it's not by coincidence, because I don't believe God throws coincidences our way. So my confusion was, God, what is going on? Why did you do this? Why did you bring Haiti in my life? This is completely frustrating. And then I realized, Bryan, maybe this is probably the path you should be on. If ever you were a decent musician, well, you're something's important here, because going to Haiti was a rediscovery of my gifts and talents and passions that God has given me, that I actually suppressed for a long time as I narrowly focused on this one goal, and I realized I should be doing that work over there in Haiti. That's what I should be doing. But the problem was, I was so deep in debt because of circumstances and, also some bad decisions and all that kind of stuff. I was so deep in debt. I knew I was rendered useless to the work that God would have me to do. And see, that's the funny thing that we all know that the enemy does, is he tries to keep us useless, so that way we can't function, and work for God, to expand his kingdom. So once you're useless, there's nothing you can do. So I knew it. I knew the next thing that I needed to do was to get out of debt. As you can see here in this picture, I'm teaching Portuguese to this one class over there in Haiti. And this picture right here, somebody captured that. That's me looking out the window. I think I was looking at a mango tree or something. But here, I was definitely, that was one of my points of frustration. I was actually pondering. I was looking outside thinking, what is going on here? Why am I even here? What's happening? Why is this big conflict of emotion? I love it here, but what does it have to do with my life? So that picture of me looking out the window, somebody took that and captured that moment. Anyway, moving forward, I knew that I needed to be released from this debt, so that way I can be obedient to God, and I can follow this path in mission work. So my wife and I, we started talking, and we worked together on these plans. Moving forward a bit, in 2015, a wonderful answer to prayer, I was able to pay off most of my debt, take my wife out of her job so she could be home with the kids. That was one of our goals that we had, and we knew that for us to move forward, we couldn't have anything tying us down, so that way we could be free to go wherever God called us. So fortunately, thankfully, we were able to do that in 2015. So now, it's 2015, and I was invited on this trip to Brazil to drill freshwater wells for indigenous communities on the Amazon. So I find myself, I'm on this big boat in the middle of the Amazon forest, in the middle of the Amazon River, and I'm talking to the missionary. This missionary had been to Brazil for about as long as my parents have. So we're talking, I'm expressing all these things, I know God is directing my path in this direction. What do I do? But how do I get to that next step? I don't know what to do at this point now. And he said, Bryan, just be obedient and do the work. Do the work, and the right people will fall into place. The paperwork will fall into place. And God will show you from there. But start doing the work. And that's what I did. That was probably one of the best pieces of advice I'd received, in a long time, and I took it to heart. So in 2016, I mustered up I had this plan, and I said, I'm going to go, and I did this project where I went to an orphanage in Haiti, and just to do an art project with them, and kind of help the pastor that oversees that orphanage, to help them build up a children's ministry, right, to help those orphans. And so I did. I was able to do that. I went by myself. The project was wonderful, and it worked out well. From that point on, God kept directing me in that direction, and that actually ended up in in the birth of Upraise. It was established by myself and 4 other men that are my mentors, my pastor, my former boss, who I went to Haiti with that first time. You know, he's a lawyer, and anyway, he knows his stuff. He's really one of my mentors, a person I look up to, and a couple of other gentlemen. And that was the establishment of Upraise, so that way these projects could take place. And our mission is to assist people in underdeveloped regions of the world to become disciples of Christ using their gifts to their fullest potential. And the way we go about our mission, we engage in mission in the following: through discipleship, mentorship, leadership training and conferences, personal development, and I broke that down into a few things such as educational opportunities and workshops, workshops related with art, foreign language instruction, and also, finally, we engage in mission through partnership with churches, local churches also, especially, other organizations and people to bring about spiritual and social transformation in these areas. Now, the question is, why the focus on discipleship? Well, I want to answer that question by talking a little bit about Milton here. I'm going to start that out. You see, there's a lot of organizations who feed people by the thousands, and they do a wonderful job doing that. But you see, at the same time, children are more than just their stomachs. Milton, for example, this is during that Haiti Initiative project in 2016. See, this is at the orphanage, but Milton is not an orphan. From what I understand, he lives with his dad. His dad's an abusive man. His mother, we don't know. She left. And his dad is never at home for whatever reason. So Milton hangs out at the orphanage all the time because at least he's got a chance, at least once a day, maybe, to get a plate of food, and he's got company. And that day, you can see he's holding up his paper that he colored, and that way he was so excited that day. And this brings us to talk about some of our challenges that we face in these areas. You know, child abandonment is widespread. It's rampant over there. Orphanages, they function as a business. You see, a lot of these kids that are in these orphanages, they have a parent. They're just abandoned, and this happens way too often. Now, trauma occurs, of course, when a father leaves a family, there is trauma for the children. But when a mother abandons an infant, from my understanding, there's a lot of irreparable damage done there. And you're looking at a nation where these children are just abandoned left and right as small children. And when I say they're left, I mean literally abandoned. I've heard of stories, and I have a friend over there who's a missionary, and he's actually taken kids that were just in the dirt and the trash, and nobody cares for them, and he brings them into his house. He's done that for the last 20 years. He's raised probably over 40 young men that way. It is crazy. So, also, there's the exploitation of the people in these nations, especially Haiti, by the government, by other NGOs, and also religious leaders in the area, where they take advantage of the ignorance and the desperation of the people. So we're dealing with those kind of things. Not to even mention the lack of infrastructure. So when people say, oh, that place is, wow, man, they have it really bad. Well, this is what bad means. And these are the challenges we face over there. But the only way that we can change a man's heart, or for a man's heart to change, let me put it that way, as to what he's going to do, to think, or believe, it's for Christ to bring about regeneration and a new life. And that's the key right there. And that is why we preach and we teach the gospel in our discipleship programs. This young boy, this is at an orphanage, and this will give you an idea. Here in the background, you see that post with the snake going around it. Well, that's actually a voodoo temple. Now, this is one of the orphanages. Years old when I first met Daniel, and so he's at the orphanage. You know, and they're even at the orphanage, these children are abandoned. Okay, how many? I mean, I went to visit there, and there were no adults on site. So you're dealing with this kind of stuff, right? So that's why we focus on discipleship. And through partnering with a local pastor over there, and that came about, our Upraise very first project for this year was the youth conference. That was I work with this pastor named Pastor Fred. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about him also. Now this youth conference, why is it a big deal? You know, and I'll tell you. Over there are no summer camps, no youth camps, or anything like that, like we have here. You know, sometimes there's so many options, you don't know which ones to go to, you know, or to send your kids to. Over there, they don't have anything like that. If there's ever any event, it's specific and exclusively only for a church or a denomination. What we did here is we put together this conference for young people, like a retreat, and opened it up to all the churches in the area and say, hey guys, regardless of whatever denomination you're from, we're doing this event for these young people, so that way we can invest in their lives, bring them solid doctrine, good teaching, you know. So sign up, because we got 80 spaces, right? A lot of pastors were kind of skeptical because that thing's not very common. But we had 15 churches participate in this youth conference that sent their youth there and everything. So, and one of the things, as you can see here, we focus on equipping them with good teaching, engage them in healthy interaction, and empower them to live and walk boldly in the Holy Spirit as they live their lives within their own context and their communities. We had special speakers at the conference. Pastor Fred recruited a couple other Haitian pastors that are solid men with good families, men that are good examples. And I also had one of our directors come over to speak at the youth conference. So we had 4 speakers. And what comes to mind as we're doing all these things, is 1 Corinthians 11:1, where Paul says, "Follow my example as I follow the example of Christ." What we do is we're there to equip the local church. We're not there to give handouts. We're not there to shell out money, that kind of a thing. We're there to come up and partner with them, walk beside them. Partnering with the local church. And in Pastor Fred, now this guy, as you can see, this is one of our workshops. Pastor Fred is right up there in the white shirt, kind of has his back towards us a little bit. Now, this gentleman, about 8 or so years ago, had the opportunity to live here in the United States with a full-time job, benefits, and everything. He had the immigration paperwork in front of him, and he was about to sign it. But he had an unsettling in his heart. He calls up his wife, and he's, "Marjorie, you know what? This is the opportunity of a lifetime. We're going to be set. But I'm not feeling comfortable. I don't feel right doing it." He goes, "This is the hardest thing that I've probably ever had to tell you, but I really believe that God is calling me back to Haiti to be a pastor." And she said, "Fred, if the Holy Spirit is guiding you in that direction and telling you to do that, and you're unsettled in your heart, make your decision, and I'll support you in whatever decision you make." Well, he went back to Haiti. He's pastoring a church. He not only is he pastoring a church, but he partners with other churches and pastors and organizations. He helps distribute food to these orphanages in the area without even getting paid. Some of these things that he does, and he's a man that cares for the souls of the people. So at our youth conference, we had several workshops. As you can see, the young people kind of engaged in talking about whatever the themes were that they were doing. Also, we supplied good food. Everybody got fed very well. The hotel where we had the event was wonderful. They had a kitchen, and the food was great. Also, a time of fun. You can see the young men there playing soccer. Also, the field, they had some really nice soccer fields over there, so that was really good. And of course, a lot of time of prayer and worship. And now, let's talk about these Bibles, right? This was a last-minute deal. One of the directors, it was 2 weeks before I went to Haiti, and he said to me, "Bryan, why don't we buy Bibles for these young people?" I said, "I got 2 weeks before I'm off to Haiti, man. I got to do a last-minute campaign." I said, "Let me talk to Pastor Fred, see what he says." So, thank God for technology, right? So I get on WhatsApp. That's the app we use to communicate. "Pastor Fred, 80 Bibles. Can we get them? How much?" And he responds, "Yeah, I know a couple places, here are the prices and this and that." He goes, "If one doesn't have it, I know another place that will." And then I said, "Okay." So it was about $600 total for 80 Bibles, right? And so right away, I go on social media, "Guys, 2 weeks to go. We need to get 80 Bibles for these kids, And no lie, like within I think it was the first 10 minutes, maybe less, I get a message from Nate. "Bryan, tell me about those Bibles, man. What's going on there? I like that. Let me talk to my pastor." I said, "Oh, okay." Anyway, here's the importance, the relevance of these Bibles, okay? Now, Haiti is a place that you're looking at anywhere between 60 to 80% unemployment, all right? And those that have any kind of job, on average, they're trying to get by on $2 a day, all right? Now, don't get me wrong. Haiti has everything that you need. There is everything over there. There is food. There is, cars. They have stuff. But it's just not accessible to the people because the government scoops up all the money for themselves, and it's just a mess, right? So these people are struggling about $2 a day. A Bible costs anywhere between $5 to $7.50, okay? So a few of these young people had a Bible with them, I saw, but the majority of them didn't. And I'll tell you, these new Bibles, these kids, man, they loved receiving those Bibles. They treasured that. And this is probably the only Bible that they'll probably own for the rest of their life, as they probably won't have another opportunity to acquire another Bible, possibly. And I want to share with you some of the recipients of those Bibles. Here we have Laureline. She's 16 years old. Mathilde, another young lady from Pastor Fred's church. We have a young man, Florestin, and two young men there. I don't remember their names. I think I've maybe spoken with one of them, but I'll tell you right now, these Bibles will make a difference in these people's lives, and they treasured those Bibles. So, thank you, Valley Christian, for participating in helping me buy those Bibles for these young people. Can a small church have a global impact? You bet. I mean, think about a church of 2,000 members, but only 100 are faithful, right? Think of a church where there's 100 people, but those 100 people are faithful, they're strong, they're bearing the fruits of the Spirit. And when you're doing that, it's just going to overflow. It's just a natural process. So I just want to say I appreciate what you guys did. So it was awesome. So why do we do this, right? Going back to that question again. Well, after sharing with you some of the stories and some of the facts, we do this so that men will stay with their wives and families. We do this for the women to not abandon their children anymore, to break that cycle. And we do this for the communities and churches to thrive in Christ. So how can we, as a body of Christ, work together? And how can us right here, work together to accomplish this mission? Well, first and foremost, I would ask you for your prayers, because this is a spiritual battle. There's a lot of souls involved in this. So I would ask for your covering and prayers. We can partner that way. I think that's the most important thing. Secondly, we can partner through monthly or ongoing financial giving at any amount, because every amount counts. And if you want some more information about this, I have booklets, information booklets in the back on the table over there. We can talk afterwards. I'm open to answer any more questions that people would have about that. And also, another way that we could work together, we know the power of the tool of the internet, right? And that's how people engage nowadays, through social media. I mean, it's huge. Everybody, they're in the line at the grocery store. They're waiting at the DMV. It's all the time. And it's all ages now. It's not just the young people. Us older people are kind of addicted now also, right? So So we can use that also. I know a lot of people will do a fundraising for their birthday. Hey, I believe in this mission, so for my birthday or for whatever occasion, I'd like to do a fundraising, and they can set whatever goal they want. $100, $200, doesn't matter. So that's also another way that we can partner together, and we can talk about these things more individually. I'm open to doing so. So if you feel moved in your heart to ask more questions, to know more about these things, feel free to talk to me afterwards. I would love to share whatever answers to your questions and all these kind of things and what we can do. So, guys, I want to leave you with this. It's something that Paul wrote as it regards the ministry. To this end, I also labor, striving according to his working, which works in me mightily. Valley Christian Pastor, I thank you very much for receiving me here today, and your openness and your open heart to global missions and to seeing the expansion of the kingdom of God and to get the word spread, the transforming, saving word of God to the people who need it. I know you guys are doing a work in your community. I can see that in the heart of your pastor and the way he's leading you and the vision that he set before you. And I can see how you guys are working together, not just in the community, but now I can see you're expanding that even more, branching out. And I appreciate that. And thank you for allowing me to be here and be a part of that. Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Let's take just a minute and pray for Brother Bryan here. Heavenly Father, we thank you again for this opportunity to serve you, Lord, to be a tool in your arsenal, to be your light in a dark place. Father, we are your servants, we're your children, and we are so grateful that you would choose to use us, as small as we are, Lord, all around the world in different ways, Lord. So we ask you, Father, to continue to bless our brother Bryan, continue to bless Upraise as they take the gospel, as they take Jesus Christ to those who need him most. Lord, we just ask for your blessing. We ask for your vision, your wisdom, your direction on our lives as to how we participate everywhere from our families to our communities to around the world. Lord, we just want to sit at your feet, be your children, and be your servants. So bless this ministry. Bless those Bibles we sent, Lord. Let your Spirit inhabit that and preach truth to those lives. And let their work over there, Lord, their shining of your light spread throughout their community. We pray for a revival in this country, for a revival in that nation, Lord. Thank you for all this in Jesus' name.